Welcome back. It has been about 2 months since my last proper layout update, and I was really prepared to go into June with a plan to create an amazing update. I set myself a challenge to work on the layout 10 minutes a day, every day, and I was going to report on the progress at the end of this month. However, I got bit by a stray animal, public health freaked out, and so I'm right in the middle of a fairly extensive rabies treatment. Needless to say, I still got some things done, so we'll be taking a look at the new access hatch I created for the Bathurst Fly Under. I started laser cutting some new building silhouettes for the backdrop to help fill it out. I added some new mood lighting to the train room, and I finally mounted some artwork and souvenirs over the hobby center. So this is the June Union Project layout update. Let's get started. So May had been a very busy month, and as a result, I missed the May update. And I didn't feel like things were going to be much different for June. So I decided to take a slightly different approach and set a challenge for myself to do 10 minutes of railroad work every day for the entire month. I grabbed a little notebook and started making notes about small projects I could tackle over the course of the month. One of the first projects I decided to take on was creating a removable access panel over the second half of the Bathurst Fly Under. Originally, I had wanted to leave this open so that the view from the bridge resembled that of the prototype, with the train descending under the rail lines. But it didn't make a lot of sense, so I thought I would change that into an access panel. I added some bracing to the opening and cut a masonite panel to cover the hole. I then created a paper template that I transferred onto styrene to create a cover that would extend past the edges of the original opening to create a hatch that would blend into the scenery. I chose styrene because I didn't want it to warp when I applied all sorts of glues and other adhesives. While working on the access hatch, I decided to invest in some color-changing LED halogen bulbs. I wanted to be able to change the mood of the train room, and these were a rather affordable investment. They have 3 different brightnesses and 12 different colors, and they allow me to add some night lighting to the train room or sunset lighting or any other sort of mood lighting to suit my needs. I added some basic ground covers to the access hatch, a combination of sifted sand and some static grass. I first applied the static grass beneath the hatch opening and secured it in place with some diluted white glue. I attempted to add a fringe of that same static grass to the edge of the hatch cover in an attempt to blend the seams together. While the glue was drying, I decided to take a look at a pair of kits that I had been given. I can't figure out the manufacturer, but they are decent kits. I wanted to start working on these kits, so it was time to clean up the workbench, and so that was another day where I spent a whole bunch of time arranging my tools and materials so that I had a clean space to start working on the kits. With the glue dry, I returned to my hatch opening and did a final cleanup. Despite best efforts, the hatch still had some warp to it, and I'll fix that later. The following day, I took an exciting trip to Toronto. My daughter gave me a wonderful gift for tickets to attend the Banksy art exhibition in downtown Toronto, Ontario. Of course, it was an absolute joy to ride the train to the exhibition, where we spent several hours looking through over 25 years of artwork and installation by Banksy from all over the world. I was very surprised to find that he had done some HO-scale models of graffiti, and I was ultimately inspired by an amazing outdoor exhibition piece called Dismayland. I can tell you that this artwork had a profound effect on me, and I'm really excited to share that I'm all but 100% committed to adding a midway to my layout based on this Banksy exhibition. More about this in an upcoming video. We spent the afternoon downtown Toronto, and when we returned home, I had a unique opportunity to race alongside the Via. Another project from my list was to finally paint the access hatches on the elevated city. I pulled out the plywood covers and gave the underside a coat of flat black paint. This is critical as the infrared sensors in the staging yard activate all too easily with anything that is light colored. I then gave the tops a color of cement colored paint and returned them to the layout. In a previous update, I talked about how I dismantled my original Dystopia layout, but I had committed to reusing most of the structures on this layout. So I very quickly installed them on the elevated city. I'm going to make a lot of refinements to the building's arrangements, and I'm going to add some much larger supporting structures, but for the time being, it does a great job of filling out the city area for the short term. I was feeling pretty good about the progress I was making within the month, but then my plans took a bit of a turn. You see, I was sitting out with some friends on the weekend when a stray animal visited us. It seemed friendly enough, but at the end of the day I wound up getting bitten, taking a significant fever, contacting the public health office, and starting a full course of vaccines for rabies. I'm going to be just fine, but I tell you that when you pump your body full of vaccinations every 3 days, the result is a semi-permanent fever dream. And yes, these 2 photos is only but 1 day's worth of drugs that I needed to take. Once I was feeling better, I switched gears once again and decided to mount some artwork in the train room that I had collected this past year. One of the pieces was some of the memorabilia that I had picked up at local train shows and online auctions. Vintage paper cutouts of the Via LRC, as well as some buttons. Additionally, my friend Chris from Go Via or Go Home had graciously gifted me a Via Rail art print by Andy Fletcher. I framed both pieces of artwork and installed them over my workspace. In past updates, I've talked about how some of the track work has warped due to moisture, and I spent some time installing additional sets of jumpers and gaps for those areas affected. Another project that I decided to tackle over the course of a few days was creating some paper cutouts of building silhouettes for the backdrop. I had originally cut out silhouette stencils that I airbrushed onto the backdrop. However, their placement hasn't been perfect, so I decided to make some paper cutouts that I can temporarily install on the backdrop to add some depth, while I continue to build structures and install them. I temporarily attached a few of the buildings in place with some tape, with the intent of moving them later as the buildings become more permanent. Ever since the Banksy exhibit, I've spent random nights researching his installation pieces, specifically the Dismayland exhibition. I have all but decided that I'm going to transform the return loop at the east end of the layout into an apocalyptic midway. To start understanding how the space might work for my advantage, I very quickly added some foam blocks to mock up large-scale buildings, and returned some of my more obscure structures such as the Doomsday Water Slide, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and the Johnny Mnemonic Church to this area. The more I consider the possibilities for what I can do with this area, the more excited I'm becoming, as I think I'll be able to add some really strange and interesting details. As for all those kits that I started working on at the beginning of the month, I've all but completed a small structure that I'll be adding to the layout. It's a bit of a rework of the bus station, and I've added some details, such as creating an interior scene and adding some much requested zombies to a caged area. So, needless to say, I didn't quite make the 10-minute a day, everyday challenge. The animal bite, subsequent illness, and standard reaction to a flurry of vaccines had me lose 5 or 6 days of the month. But I did press on, even though I don't exactly remember what it was I was doing. Despite these challenges, this month was still really productive. I'm really looking forward to the coming months as I feel ultra inspired. Visiting the Banksy exhibit in Toronto and getting my first taste of the Dismayland exhibition really gave me a lot of great ideas for this layout and things that I'm excited to incorporate. Anyway, never a dull moment. It was an eventful month. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.